December 3rd, 1993 in Medellin, Colombia. It's not just an ordinary man being buried. He is the most powerful drug lord of all time. Some called him Robin Hood, while others called him a terrorist and drug lord. That day, the crowd was so large that the Colombian police and army had to maintain order at the funeral. Why were 25,000 people at the funeral of the most wanted criminal in the world? Why so much chaos and sadness? To learn about the day of the funeral of the biggest drug lord, keep watching this video. On Pablo, after 16 years as a drug kingpin, his end was near. He was on the run from everyone, from the Colombian and American governments to rivals of the cartel, and everyone wanted him. There was a big problem. No one knew where he was, but the CIA already had Pablo's family under control, and they were waiting for Pablo's fatal mistake. On December 2nd, 1993, Pablo called his son. Pablo knew this was a risk, but perhaps he saw that it was over, and he wanted to hear from his son one last time. This call allowed the CIA to locate Pablo in Barrio Los Olivios, a neighborhood in Medellin. After an intervention by the Colombian army and American special forces, they killed Pablo's only bodyguard and then Pablo after an exchange of fire. Immediately after that, Viva Colombia was heard on the radio as the army cheered. We just killed Pablo Escobar. Drug lord Pablo Escobar was killed today, 16 months after his escape from prison. Soon after news spread, the nation was in turmoil. A flashpoint so great that awakened people from every corner of the country. This news of his death spread like wildfire. News channels could not say another word, but Pablo Escobar has been shot dead. The drug lord is breathing no more on Colombian soil. Radio channels screamed out, "Escobar is no more." The crowd's reaction to Escobar's demise was a fusion of sadness and admiration. There was a palpable sense of loss and suffering. The game was changing for drug dealers, and everyone wanted to take control of the pitch. The government took Pablo's family into custody, and suddenly there was unrest on Colombian streets. People began to gather at the scene of his death, not just anyone, but followers of Escobar who came to hail their Robin Hood. To the government, he was a ruthless cocaine baron, but to the people of Medellin's hillsides, he was a hero. Colombians will remember him as the man who gave millions to the poor in Colombia. A large number of people arrived at the funeral. Pablo's family and friends were also there to pay their last tribute. Some mourned the loss of their Robin Hood, while others were relieved that Escobar could no longer carry out his criminal activities. The mourners wore t-shirts and pictures of Pablo Escobar, and some carried signs that read, "Pablo, you will always be with us, and long live Pablo Escobar." Reports say that the crowd was so big that the drug lord's family could not even open the car doors when they arrived at the funeral. They had to turn around and miss the funeral. The drug lord's family mourned him in silence and fear. Pablo Escobar's death had a major effect on his family and friends, who were not only grieving his loss but also feeling the effects of the media spotlight surrounding the news of his death. After he died, his body was taken to a local morgue in Medellin, Colombia. After paying their respects to the fallen drug lord, Escobar's family fled the scene as reporters and enemies surrounded the funeral. The funeral was held at the Janindes Montesacro Cemetery in Medellin 2 days after his death. Thousands mourned on the horrifying day, saying their last goodbyes. The authorities tried to maintain order, but they could not stop the outraged mourners. After stopping the crowd, they fought back and rushed to the funeral. The burial was carried out with such urgency that the priest tried to say prayers, but ultimately could not finish due to the push and pressure from the crowd. His family faced many problems: fear of enemies, pressure from the government, and accusations from reporters. It was a chaotic day with reporters ambushing the family. Escobar's son uttered in anguish, "We are just going through a lot and trying to make our lives normal for my mother, my sister Manuela, and me. The past 24 hours had been the most intense hours of our lives. Not only did we have to deal with the terrible pain of losing the head of our family in such a violent way, but the funeral was even worse. This day changed so much. Some lost their family head, some lost their hero, while others rid themselves of the most notorious criminal on earth." Now, what do Colombians think of the legend? Pablo Escobar was a controversial and polarizing figure in Colombia. People have different opinions about him. Some admire Escobar as a Robin Hood-like figure who used his power and wealth to help the underprivileged and oppressed in his community. Some Colombians despise him for being a violent and immoral drug dealer involved in criminal activities. Many Colombians say that Pablo is a dark chapter for their country, akin to Hitler for the Germans. Some say Colombian passports are looked at suspiciously at airports because of the country's association with his name, and this irritates them. Since his untimely death in 1993, opinions have been divided over whether he should be remembered as a folk hero or a horror story. What do you think? Does Pablo Escobar deserve so much attention even today? Write to us in the comments.